Welcome, Eagles everywhere, to the NovaCare Complex, our continuing coverage of the Philadelphia Eagles 2021 training camp, presented by DraftKings. I'm Eagles insider Dave Spadaro, along with Fran Duffy. Fran, the pads are on. Training camp takes it to a new level, starting right now.
The urgency is going to be higher than it has been at any point this offseason. Really, really excited to see what these guys get into on the field today.
We got a little split screen here of my two guys in my current Eagles Insider podcast episode. Miles Sanders on your left, Eagles running back in his third season. Anthony Harris, revealing interview with him as a guy on and off the field. He's on the right, the safety who came from the Minnesota Vikings this year. Please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Eagles Insider podcast, along with our Eagles Update podcast and our Journey to the Draft podcast and our Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. We are podcast central here with the Philadelphia Eagles. Fran, I kind of will tell you that I've only been listening to podcasts for the last couple of years, but they're my go-to day in and day out from a variety of topics. And what we do here is take you behind the scenes, and it really does work. In the Eagles Insider podcast, a visit with Nick Sirianni in his office, and then, of course, with Anthony Harris, with Miles Sanders, with Aaron Sipos. Really great episode. Please take a listen.
And I feel like we've been doing them in digestible enough formats that, you know, whether it was Eagles Insider or the Daily Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, you can knock those out while you're doing the dishes at night. And that's what I've kind of been doing, is re-listening to some of those podcasts. 20 minutes, 25 minutes, not while I'm knocking the dishes out, put the little guy to bed, and now I can get on with the rest of my evening.
There you go. Yeah, all smiles. Number 6, first-round draft pick DeVonta Smith won't practice today. He's listed as week to week with a knee injury, but we saw him earlier today catching footballs on the jugs machine. He'll do 1,000 a day. Very easy. He doesn't look concerned at all. And the Eagles, this is not a big concern moment. This is a precautionary moment. Let's keep this very talented and very special young player on the sidelines until we know that he is 1,000% ready to go.
You had video of him working on the jugs machines over on your Instagram and your Twitter page, I believe. So
yes.
You can go check that out, the video of DeVonta Smith catching some passes on Tuesday morning as the rest of the team gets ready for full pads. There's Ryan Kerrigan as well. Yeah,
Ryan Kerrigan with a wrap on the thumb there, on the right thumb. I know some concern when he left practice from fans yesterday, but won't practice today, obviously. The Eagles in full pads for the first time in this 2021 training camp. Ryan Kerrigan, who has been through a decade's worth of training camps, he can sit a few out. He'll be just fine. Hey, Fran, what have you seen from Kerrigan, just his burst and just the way the Eagles are going to kind of use him this year?
Well, that's what I think is going to be most exciting, is that you're not expecting him to come in and play 40 to 45 snaps every single week for a 17-week season. I don't think that that's going to be the plan for Ryan Kerrigan. But when you look at the way that the rest of this Eagles defensive line is played, you look at the Brandon Grahams, Derek Barnett has had a really good camp. Josh Sweat, we talk about every day, has been one of the best guys up front. So when you have all those other threats along the defensive line coming off the edge, well, now there's not as much pressure to say, the Eagles need a lot out of Ryan Kerrigan, and now he can come in and give you maximum effort as that kind of change up off the edge.
And you know, Fran, we have all, for the last week here since the Eagles have been on the field, offering our instant analysis of all of these players running around in shorts, thud practices, and that's great, and that's important, and that's revealing. But now the pads go on, and you kind of, you don't forget everything that's happened prior, but you'd certainly take everything that happens from this moment forward in a new and different light.
Especially, we see Derek Barnett there. We've been talking about the rest of the defensive line. You look at the offensive line, obviously some competition with that position group, especially when you deal with the trenches. This is where those really important reps, those really important practice sessions really come into play. So for the guys along the offensive line and the defensive line, you factor in the running backs and linebackers as well. It's a big day.
I mean, I honestly don't say, hey, that defensive player looks good or does not look good, because they haven't worn pads. They haven't been able to tackle. Not until they really are able to bring to the ground. And we don't know if today is the day when they go live and bring players to the ground. That will be done on a limited basis here in this training camp. But that's kind of what it's all about, right? That's the game of football, finishing the play. And unless you're tackling, you're not finishing the play.
No, and obviously, look, we've seen some chippiness over the first week, right? We've seen the defense has been really, really aggressive. My guess is that even when it's not live to the ground, they're going to be thudding up, and so that competition is going to ratchet up just a little bit more as we look there at Javon Hargrave, who has been outstanding, by the way, so far this summer. I just feel like the urgency is just going to ratchet up just a little bit today.
It's just a huge week here with the Philadelphia Eagles. We thank you all for joining us this morning, our continuing coverage of the Philadelphia Eagles 2021 training camp here at the NovaCare Complex. Our coverage presented by DraftKings. I'm Dave Spadaro. He's Fran Duffy. And we go live today, or at least we go full pads today. Good week of practice through Thursday. Players' Day off on Friday. The great Harold Carmichael goes into the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Saturday. Such a long wait for a player who, Fran, with all of the rules changes, the way the game has just changed, the inflation with statistics, particularly with wide receivers, all of these years later, his last season was 1983 with the Eagles, Harold Carmichael with 589 receptions, still the leader in career catches for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's a remarkable, long-standing record. Zach Ertz is on the cusp of breaking.
Yeah, depending on the season that Zach can have, he's going to be within striking distance for sure of that record. Now, I think when you look at some of the receivers that have been some of the best in the modern era, we'll say even the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you think of the Calvin Johnsons, the A.J. Greens, those. Harold Carmichael was ahead of his time in terms of his frame, his skill set, his ability to go up and win above the rim and jump over defenders and make those plays. It's awesome to be able to see him go into Canton.
And then the week, this week kind of ends. Next week begins, if you will, with our open practice, our first of two at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday, August 8th, 7 p.m. Great time to bring the whole family down to Lincoln Financial Field. The cost is just $10. And every dollar of that goes to the Eagles Autism Foundation. So bring them down, 7 o'clock kickoff, if you will. Eagles practice open to the public on Sunday, the first of two, the second, August 22nd. We hope to see you at the link this weekend.
We got a lot of family coming down on both sides to come down and watch the Eagles practice over at Lincoln Financial Field. It's a great opportunity to see these guys up close.
Sure is. And we give you just a sneak peek, a peek behind the curtains here each day. And I know we've had great audiences, and we thank you very much for joining us. But when you go to the stadium, we turn the cameras off when they go into position breakouts and they line up. And we don't want to give scouting reports to the first couple of teams on the Eagles schedule this year. When you go live, you see it all. The cameras don't turn off, and you make your own judgment about this football team and where it is in what has been described as a transition kind of period for the Philadelphia Eagles by Jeffrey Lurie. The team doesn't think that. And when you watch them, Fran, a defense that is incredibly active, very fast, and an offense that has been making more and more progress every day.
Yeah, and one aspect that really stood out to me yesterday, Dave, we talked about this yesterday on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, was the run game really seemed to get going. And again, no pads, so take that with the grain of salt that we've discussed. But when you're watching the run game, sometimes in those periods, it can always be tough to be able to gauge, did the defender touch the running back? Would that have been a tackle? But I always try and just gauge the reactions of the offensive coaches in the background or in the foreground, depending on where I'm standing on the field. And it was like 3 or 4 plays in a row during one of the team sessions yesterday. And Jeff Stoutland, Nick Sirianni, the rest of the offensive staff that was behind the play, when it was Miles Sanders, Kerryon Johnson, Jordan Howard, those guys would get through the hole or get to the perimeter, and all the coaches were celebrating. You're like, all right, they're getting things going in the run game. I thought that was really important to see for this offense moving forward as well.
Yeah, and the sense is that Nick does want to rely on the run game. Yep. And the Eagles certainly do have some talent at the running back position. They've got the big, strong offensive line. Brandon Brooks, Isaac Seumalo missing time with hamstring injuries. They're still sidelined today, which just means you get more reps for the Herbigs of the Jack Driscolls of the world, and Sua Opeta, who seems to me to be having a very good camp when I watch one-on-ones, really rock solid, very strong. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not sure that Brandon Brooks needs a whole ton of reps to get ready for the opener in Atlanta.
Brandon Brooks knows what he's doing. He's been around a few times. He has an idea of how to get himself mentally and physically ready for the rigors of an NFL season. So to be able to get an extra look at some of these young guys, really, really beneficial to obviously to Howie Roseman and his team, but also the coaching staff. You look at Jeff Stoutland, being able to get some of those extra reps for those young offensive linemen can be invaluable this time of year.
We're taking a look at some Jake Elliott work here. The snap from Rick Lovato, the hold from Aaron Siposs, and the kick is up from 37 yards. We couldn't tell. I don't know if you looked at the other monitor. I guess we can actually tell from this other monitor if it's good. Be kind of cool to do a split screen here. The kick and to see if it's good. So he's back from 44, right?
Yeah, that would be the 44-yarder.
There we go. Thank you.
Let's see if we can get this.
Thank you. We'll snap, the hold, the kick. It's up. It's good. Jake Elliott. And that's the thing with Jake. It's about the consistency on those very, very makeable 30 to 49 yarders. He certainly got the leg from much further than that. As we see now, it looks like it'll be a 47-yard kick. Wouldn't mind seeing another split screen here. Everybody
Side
out
seat
there.
directing.
Oh, that's now in my ear. He's like, hold on, get off my case. Here we go. All right, the kick, the snap, up. Can't tell. It looked well. Everybody says it's good.
It looks like they're saying good. Here we go.
Well, we're gonna say that's good. Oh, hey, well, the confirmation that it was good, and now they can move to the next drill. And Jake Elliott has a very good morning here on this Tuesday at the NovaCare Complex. Our coverage continues of the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles training camp here at the NovaCare Complex. Presented by DraftKings. The Eagles in pads for the first time. Dave Spadaro, Fran Duffy, glad to be here to bring it to you wherever you are around the world.
Do you think when Merrill Reese, who is here every single day for training camp, do you think when he's watching practice and he sees a big play that he's rehearsing calls in his head for some of the new players?
Yes, I think he does. No, the other day it was really funny. So they were playing old school rap. In the music, and Mike Quick and he and I were just saying, and Merrill started doing a little rap.
Did he really?
Yeah, like funny, like he doesn't know any of the words, but like it was just hysterical. And those two guys, I mean, having the fans around finally after a year of broadcasting from Lincoln Financial Field from a special booth, while the accommodations were terrific last year, I know they want to be around the fans. They want to feel the fans in the stands. The players certainly missed them last year, and I know the broadcast team missed the fans so much as well.
Yeah, they definitely feed off of that energy for sure. I know, especially from Merrill, feeding off the energy that the crowd can provide. And the playlists so far, you mentioned the old school rap, the playlists have been absolutely awesome so far to start camp. And I know Nick Sirianni is giving some of the players the ability. I believe it was Jalen Hurts' day yesterday, and he picked a lot of the songs that played throughout the course of practice.
Fran, if they ask you to put a playlist together, what would you put together?
It would be honestly, if I go back to last Friday, all right, so we're going back last Friday, it was almost a week ago now. I would say it would be a heavy amount of Jay-Z. We'd go back to like the late 90s, early 2000s, and the early Kanye West stuff. A lot of that stuff was right in my wheelhouse. Whoever picked Friday's tracks, I got to go and talk to them because we're on the same page there.
I like it. So that's why you're being so energetic and putting out such great content with our daily notes, with your podcasts, your daily podcasts, really getting into the thick of this training camp. And I think, Fran, we are now entering that phase where, we're a week and a half away here, week and 2 days away from the first preseason game. And I guess here in the next couple of days, we're going to see some tackling, or at least some live. I don't know if that means tackling to the ground. This is a new coach. This is a new setup.
Yep.
This is a new program. I don't know what Nick has in mind as far as contact, tackling to the ground, and live periods.
Yeah, it's something that is going to be really interesting to watch. Something that certainly everybody that's in attendance today will be keeping an eye for is when will they go live to the ground. I know in years past it's been maybe 1 or 2 drills a day when they would have full pads would go to the ground. We'll see if it's more or less or more of the same once we get going here. But right now going through some special teams, we see the defensive backs here. So we see Anthony Harris going through some individual work.
We want to give you an update on some injuries, nothing official here, and nothing that the Eagles feel will go into the regular season. Now, we still haven't seen Landon Dickerson, who is on the PUP.
Yep.
And the Eagles going to bring him along slowly. Not a redshirt year, but going to bring him along. No sense rushing somebody who tore the ACL in December. Rodney McLeod in that same boat as he recovers from his torn ACL. His goal is to be ready for the Atlanta Falcons on opening day. So those are two players who are kind of on the sidelines here. Still waiting for Alex Singleton to come back after his COVID test. Came back positive last week. Really a shame for Alex, who is vaccinated. And I guess he's got to be out another, well, we talked about this yesterday. He has to have 2 negative tests before he can come back to Eagles practice. And for a guy like that who's just aching to be on the football field, you really feel for him.
Yeah, no question. And that linebacker spot has been really interesting. I think that group could surprise some people. You know, we've seen some really good flashes from them so far, and the fact that we've seen that without the team's leading tackler a year ago in Singleton, I think it's a good sign. But Singleton certainly wants to be a fixture in the middle of that group.
And this is right now when I really want to judge somebody and evaluate somebody like Davion Taylor.
Yeah.
Yes, he's made a lot of strides understanding where he's supposed to be, understanding the scheme, getting to the right spots. But now that the pads are on, I want to see what he's got in a physical game. And so let's see, more injuries. Brandon Brooks, we talked about. Isaac Seumalo still out with those hamstring injuries. They should be back, we hope, knock on wood, soon. Ryan Kerrigan had his thumb wrapped as we watched him in the early work here, so he's out perhaps on a day-to-day basis. We'll see. Devontae Smith with the knee injury is listed as week to week. Again, out here catching passes, going through the stretches, on the sidelines. These injuries are not expected to come anywhere close to the opener. When the Eagles go down to Atlanta for the September 12th game, that they are expected to be at full strength with what they've got, and that's great news.
Yeah, we've seen other guys come back recently as well. So we've seen Quez Watkins return to the field in recent days from his non-COVID related illness. We've seen Greg Ward return to practice. Jalen Reagor return to practice. Travis Fulgham missed today. He's back at practice. So a lot of these young receivers starting to be sprinkled in here, and we're starting to see them all make plays. Quez Watkins had a huge play on a deep ball, a deep post route from Jalen Hurts yesterday in practice in a team drill. So we've gotten to see his speed out there on display. He caught a touchdown later in practice as well on a little screen, a little catch and run down close to the goal line. Jalen Reagor has made plays each day. Greg Ward looks like his normal self, right? That savvy route runner, such a reliable target over the short and intermediate parts of the field. So I think when you see some of these receivers, that picture is starting to take shape. But there's still a lot of football to be played this summer, and that competition is going to wear on through the rest of camp, certainly, but then into these preseason games.
You didn't mention John Hightower, who every day has kind of been showing up here. We'll see now that the pads are on, now that it's going to be much more physical, although it's been a physical camp. Look at the speed, the athletic ability of these very large men as they show some incredible quickness with their feet, balance, change of direction here. I mean, this is impressive stuff right here.
Yeah, this is what you're looking for. This is what you want an NFL defensive line to look like. All of these guys, as they're flashing across the screen, I can think of plays where they have flashed so far in camp, whether it's been in one-on-ones or in team drills. This defensive line looks to be a strength of this defense once again.
Yeah, Jonathan Gannon has said that, and I think that's kind of the way it works in the NFL. When you win in the trenches, everything kind of falls from there, and the Eagles are well positioned with their O-line, with their D-line, to win in the trenches.
Yep.
And that's going to make life easier for Jalen Hurts, and that's going to make life easier for Steven Nelson and Darius Slay on the corner. Opportunity for them to get their hands on the football this year. Something that Slay last year was just one takeaway. You know, tough spot for him. A lot of man-to-man coverage and a lot of solo coverage, Fran, for Darius Slay. How would you evaluate how big play Slay performed last season?
Well, I think that, number one, you got to take into account the role that he was asked to play. And when you are covering the number one receiver for opposing teams in the NFL, that's a tough go. That's a very tall task, especially when you have some of the best receivers in the NFL on the schedule. That said, of course, there are plays that he would like to have back. But I think when you look at it, there are very few corners in the NFL that can do what Darius Slay does on a repeated basis. He is a really sticky man-to-man cover corner, but he's also a really savvy zone corner. And when you play zone coverage, you're going to have your eyes on the quarterback. You have your eyes on the field at all times. And so if you are a ball hawking player, think of an Asante Samuel. He thrived playing in off-zone coverage because he had full vision on the entire play. He could break on things early and see things before they happen. I think when you're playing in zone coverage, that can be more prone to creating turnovers on the back end. I know there are some coaches that feel strongly about that throughout the course of the sport.
Live coverage of the Philadelphia Eagles 2021 training camp presented by DraftKings continues here at the NovaCare Complex. Dave Spadaro, Eagles Insider, with you, along with Fran Duffy, our X's and O's guru here with the Philadelphia Eagles. We're taking a look behind the curtain as the Eagles, the first day in full pads in training camp. And look, we are hopeful that we see some flat-out physical drop guys to the ground football. We'll see if that happens a little later in the day. But to me, Fran, it's just one step closer to the real thing. I can't wait.
I know. Or just, what is it now? Like you said, a week and 2 days away from the first preseason game. Then we'll have joint practices against the Patriots the week after. That'll be another step toward, as we get closer and closer to the regular season. I'm interested, too, to see what the process is going through just 3 preseason games and how often the starters play in those games. It's not going to be that same rhythm that I think people had become accustomed to, where the starters played a series in the first game and then maybe a quarter in the second game and then the full half, the quote-unquote dress rehearsal in game 3. I'm interested to see what that rhythm looks like over a 3-game preseason as opposed to 4.
In our split screen, Fran, we've got on the left defensive lineman working. You got to stay low in this game. You don't pop up when the ball's snapped. You stay low and drive forward. That is what that drill's all about. And then finding the football for the defensive backs.
Yeah, it's obviously a huge part, a lifeblood of a defensive